Hey there, everybody. My name is Horia Peruzziu, and today I'm here to talk to you about contributing to open source, and more specifically, contributing to Hyperledger Fabric. But before I do that, we have a message from today's sponsor, which is this kombucha. Nice, that's good stuff. Okay, so why would you even want to consider contributing to open source in the first place? So let's go ahead and take a look at Hyperledger. We go onto the website here. We see some of their projects. We have this Hyperledger Grid project coming up, this new release of Sawtooth, and then we have this cool traceability of Fabric. There's a bunch of projects. And you're like, okay, I do want to get started. So how do I do that? So this is exactly what I'm going to help you do in this video. So essentially what you need to do to actually go ahead and make a commit. So essentially all these Hyperledger projects, so if you go to Hyperledger, whether it's Fabric Samples or whether it's Sawtooth, Iroha, Ursa, Indy, all of these projects, they're all hosted on JIRA, right? So if we actually want to make a commit or if we want to contribute to this project, we actually have to do it through JIRA. So that's what I'll help explain today. And essentially, the end of the video, I'll show you how I made my first commit. So essentially, what you see here is my commit. So you can see that I literally changed one character from a uppercase C to a lowercase c right there. That's all I did in my commit. So nothing too fancy, as you would say it. But I just, I still did contribute to the documentation, and of course, in the future, I'm working on doing much more. But if we go back to, let's see, all of my changes here, you can see this is the one that was recently closed. This is the actual issue right here. If we click on it. And essentially, I want to go ahead and show you how do you get started contributing to Hyperledger, and how do I get to this step where I actually have contributed to Hyperledger. And if we go to okay, so here we go, Hyperledger Fabric EVM. So yeah, this is where you can see my commit here was happened an hour ago, right? How do we get to this point where we actually can see our commit on GitHub? So essentially, what I first did is I saw a mistake in the examples, and I went into this markdown file and I said, oh, you know what, why don't I just go ahead and click this edit, and I create a fork on my GitHub and change some of this code and then do the pull request, right? That's the normal workflow you would do in GitHub, but that's not how it works here because we have to use JIRA. So yeah, enough of the intro. This is what I'll show you is how to get to this point where we actually see our commit updated in the Hyperledger project. Okay, so first things first, we actually have to get a Linux Foundation ID. So the way to do that is, let's go ahead and check that out. So you can just go ahead and click this. And you can, so I've already created mine, but I need to create a Linux Foundation ID, and that's the first step that you need. Okay, so now that we have this Linux ID, we're ready to kind of get into the meat of this process. So before we do that, let me go ahead and explain the first steps, and kind of give you an overview of the process. So once we have that Linux Foundation ID, we're going to log into JIRA with our ID. And then we're going to go ahead and grab an SSH key and add it to JIRA. Once we've added our SSH key, then we should be able to go and make a copy of that repo. So whether it's Fabric, whether it's Sawtooth, whatever project you want to contribute to in Hyperledger, there's plenty of projects. So we want to make a copy of that repo locally on our computer. After that, the next important step is once we make our code our change in the code, we actually want to reference a issue in JIRA. So all the issues that are assigned in JIRA are the ones that you want to show in your commit message. So in your commit message, you'll say, I'm referencing this issue in JIRA, and write your commit message: fixed Web3 command and tutorial in Fabric Chain Code EVM. once you push that that change, you're gonna have to actually go into you'll see something like this, where in JIRA, where you'll see something like, okay, we have this issue that you're referencing. We see your commit here, and now you have to have 2 reviewers. So someone who's a maintainer of the project, someone who is very familiar with the project, is going to go ahead and have to review your code. And you need to get 2 approvers to give you +2s. So you can see on my screen here, Morgan Bauer and Swetha Repakula have both approved my request, and that's it pretty much. Once that has been approved, then that's when this gets actually merged, and that's after it passes continuous integration and continuous deployment. So that's kind of the process, and now let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now let's go ahead and log into Jarrett. So once you can go ahead and go to jarrett.hyperledger.org/r. And then in here, that it'll ask for your login, and you use your Linux Foundation ID. And then once you're logged in, we have to actually add an SSH key. So to do that, we'll have to go into our name. We'll click on Settings. And in Settings, we're going to go to SSH Public Keys. And here, this is where you have to go ahead and click Add a Key. So this is, you can click this. And then, so here it says add a SSH public key, how to generate an SSH key. So essentially what you have to do is you have to run this command.